All right, get this. Imagine you could combine a deep dive into your family history with the cruise to the Caribbean. It sounds kind of wild, right? Well, today we're jumping into a fascinating story that takes us right on board a floating research conference for genealogists. The person whose journey we're following, a guy named Randy Seaver, he called it one of the most enriching genealogical experiences of my research career. I mean, that's a pretty huge statement. So what in the world made a conference on a cruise ship so incredibly special?
Yeah, it really all boils down to that one kind of crazy question. What actually happens when you pack 200 dedicated genealogists, a bunch of world-class experts, and some seriously complicated software onto a cruise ship, and then just set sail? Well, for everyone on board, the mission was really clear. And it was personal. It was all about finally breaking through those stubborn research brick walls. You know the ones I'm talking about, those ancestors who just seemed to disappear into thin air. And this was no small get-together. We're talking about 200 registered attendees. That's basically a floating village of family history detectives, all obsessed with the same thing.
Okay, so a huge piece of this whole experience wasn't just about sharing stories. It was about getting your hands dirty and mastering the tools of the trade. And in this case, that meant one specific, powerful piece of software called the Master Genealogist, or TMG, which was famous for being unbelievably capable and unbelievably hard to learn.
And that really gets to the core problem with a tool like TMG, doesn't it? On one side, the promise was just immense. You could bend it to your will, create anything you wanted. But on the other, that learning curve was just brutal. It really forced everyone to ask themselves, is all this power actually worth the pain of learning it? Randy Seaver himself summed it up perfectly. He said, "I am truly convinced that TMG is a very powerful program. But is it worth that effort?" I mean, that's a question every single one of us has to face when we're thinking about picking up a new complicated tool.
But listen, this cruise wasn't just about wrestling with software. It was this incredible, once-in-a-lifetime chance to learn directly from the absolute legends of the genealogy world. And this is where a real mindset shift started to happen. The legendary Elizabeth Shown Mills, she offered this powerful definition of research. It's not just looking up answers in a book. No, it's tracking down the answer. Because nobody else has solved the problem yet. It's pure detective work. Then you had another expert, John Titford, who just zeroed in on this huge hurdle we all face, actually writing the family history. He just called out all the classic excuses. You know the ones. Oh, I'm not finished with my research yet, or I'm just not a good writer. His whole point was, stop making excuses, organize what you have, and just start writing. And get this, another talk just completely shattered a common assumption. We all kind of think of our ancestors as being stuck in one little town, right? Well, nope. Turns out, even back in early colonial times, people were surprisingly mobile. We're talking moves of 100 miles or more. The big takeaway? You gotta broaden your search. So, okay, you've got the tools, you've got these incredible insights from the experts, but there was this whole other magical element to the cruise. And that was the community. It was living proof that genealogy doesn't have to be a solo mission. A perfect example of this was the Right Annie, Wrong Annie story. It was about finding the true identity of Annie Moore, the very first immigrant who came through Ellis Island. It was just this powerful, moving case study that showed how a whole group of researchers working together could correct a massive historical error. It just reminds you of the heart and soul of this work. And honestly, the whole atmosphere was just fun. You had people sharing huge research breakthroughs over dinner. And the whole thing ended with the entire group, all 200 of them, belting out the song "I'm My Own Grandpa," led by one of the speakers. Apparently, it's a tradition. But all of this, the software, the expert talks, the community, it was all building towards one thing, the peak of the whole trip. The one-on-one consultations, where you could bring your absolute toughest cases directly to the masters. Because that's the question, isn't it? The one that drives every single person in that room. How in the world do you solve a family mystery that's been cold for 200 years? And this is the payoff. This is where the magic happens. Randy Seaver brings 3 of his biggest brick walls to the table. For his ancestor Thomas J. Newton, David Lambert tells him to check unpublished church records and specific tax lists. For Elizabeth Horton Dell, Elizabeth Shown Mills says to go back to the original deeds for her sons. And for Mary Hoax, Sandra Hellett points him to specific records in 3 different counties. This is absolute gold. We're talking specific, actionable advice that could finally crack these cases wide open. So after all of that, you have to stand back and ask the big question. Was this totally unconventional format, a research conference on a cruise ship, was it actually worth it?
Because let's be real for a second, the venue wasn't exactly perfect. The talks were happening in a disco and karaoke bar. The sightlines were tough, and one expert even had her slides getting all twisted sideways by a faulty projector. But you know what? In the end, none of that stuff mattered. Not one bit. As Randy said, the speakers and program content were excellent, which is what really mattered. The quality of the information, the substance, it just completely blew away any issues with the style.
So, if we boil this entire voyage down, what are the big lessons for all of us? Well, there are 3. Number 1, embrace the tools. Yeah, powerful software is tough to learn, but the payoff can be massive. 2, follow the paper trail. The real answers, the good stuff, it's in the original records, not just the databases. And 3, connect with the community. Because that shared passion and expert advice, that's the ultimate tool for breaking down any brick wall.
And all of that just leaves us with one final thought. And this one is for you. After hearing about this incredible journey of discovery out on the open sea, it makes you wonder, what's the biggest mystery hiding in your family tree?